I do like these big trees for the desert. They're kind of neato. Well, it's plenty accessible.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you doing? We made it back into the shade.
That's right. So, should I sing or background if we did?
Yeah.
So have you been here before?
No.
No.
Tell us things.
So this is the largest petrichor site in the Green Valley. It's 1,032 images just within the confines of the site.
It's really compact. We've seen these kind of things in Utah and stuff, and they're usually like more spread out, but man.
Well, it's hard. It's a couple. You think of a couple reasons. The Beaver Creek was right up here.
Right.
The trees weren't here then, and so you could. And Beaver Creek was kind of like a highway.
Uh huh.
So you've got Montezuma Castle, and then the well, and then Dyke Ranch, and then all the way up. Every 1.8 miles is lines. And so these are all by the Southern Tanawa. They've estimated, the literature always said 1150 to 1400, but when we did excavations here in 2005, we found pottery going back to 950. So if there's pottery here, most likely they started to do the rock art here then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
right.
But they have nothing. So it's just weird why that, or
Something happened to this group.
they don't want us to know.
Oh.
So there's a lot of times where you ask them questions and they will not answer you.
Yeah.
It's something you're not supposed to know. Kind of
Well,
thing.
that's cool.
But that's okay. That's their
I think that's great.
So the claim to fame is this panel here is a calendar. So we had the winter solstice this a little earlier, and it'll reappear tomorrow again for the winter solstice. But,
This thing that's in the
right. Yeah.
in the
there's
shade.
pictures.
In the shade.
Yeah. The big boulder that's sticking out up here. Okay. And has a little bit of a shadow. When the sun first crests the bluff, the shadow goes all the way to the ground. And there was a second one where you see the big hole. That rock that's on the ground here was in that hole. So there would be two shafts of shadow, as you see in these pictures, and it would go all the way down to the ground. And at summer solstice, now the sun is to the farthest to the north, so the line is almost straight. And then as it starts to go towards the winter solstice to the south, these two lines will creep up, almost like a pendulum. So it'll go 6 months up, 6 months down, 6 months up, 6 months down. And so when they recognized that, they were able to then put images at different times, like the equinoxes, solstices, corn planting times. And so as the sun or shadow would hit those things, they'd know, aha, time to plant the corn, or it's an equinox, or it's a winter solstice, summer solstice ceremonies. So this was basically a calendar wall.
Huh.
So we just had the winter solstice been open a couple of weeks. So they're doing official ribbon cutting with Forest Service people and tribal elders and all this stuff. And the archaeologist is giving a talk about 10 to 30, and then I give a talk at 12.
Yeah.
The black stuff that's like a lichen.
That's called desert varnish, and it is a.
But it is like a living.
It is a
thing,
form
right?
of bacteria. Yes.
Oh, nice.
And it takes like a super long time to grow, doesn't it?
Yeah, like when you look up high and you see it's kind of a bluish tint to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say that could be like 10,000 years to get to be that thick and that color.
Wow.
And then when
Isn't that
you see what they did is basically it's like when you were when we were kids and we had crayons, we would do the big all these rainbow colors and then you cover the whole thing in black and then you take your finger and scrape the black away.
Yeah.
That's basically what they did here. They scraped away the black.
Yeah.
Now, one way you can tell, you can't really date this. There's nothing to date. You can't carbon date it.
Right, because the rocks are the age they are.
That's it. But one thing you can do is, when you get to the far corner over there, they're no longer pink. The black desert varnish has reclaimed it. So over time, the desert varnish will start to go back into the crevices. The corner are older than the ones over here because the desert varnish maybe took hundreds and hundreds of years to come back.
Wow, that is so interesting.
So it's the coloration is with the desert varnish is what gives you at least what they call a relative date, relative one image to another.
Gosh, archaeology is so interesting. How they come up with all these ways to find more information about it.
Yeah, true.
It's
We decided to get into that for what a lot of them, these people come in and say, well, my major in college was archaeology or anthropology, but when I graduated, I couldn't make any money at it. I had to go into business.
Right.
And so now that I'm retired, I want to get back into it.
Yeah.
And so we have these people who will specialize. So when you go for a degree, you got to have this broad range of stuff. But when you're retired, you say, well, I only care about pottery. I only care about arrowheads. My specialty is prehistoric astronomy. That's all I care about. So I probably know more about prehistoric astronomy than any PhD.
Right.
And I've actually had them tell me that.
Yeah.
And so, same thing, when we have these experts in pottery, Park Service, Forest Service, they'll be digging a hole and they'll come up with some pottery. They have to come to us to tell us what it is because they have nobody on staff that can do that.
Because if you get a PhD, you do research on one thing to get your PhD.
Pretty much.
So, yeah.
So so we're mostly at.
So anyways, I like the security here.
Well, this used to be just a cyclone fence with barbed wire on the top. The Forest Service acquired this property in '95, and they recorded it, they studied it, and they said, "Oh, we'll just let people come back here and explore." Well, within a few months, somebody scratched their name, and so that's what